Good afternoon. Thank you for coming so punctually. We have reached the appointed time, and we have got a quorum as well. So let's start. Confirmation. First item: confirmation of minutes for the meeting held on the 16th of December 2013. It's paper CB1 1103 1314. The draft minutes have been sent to members. So far, we haven't received any proposed amendments, so I would confirm the minutes now, if members don't have any proposed amendment. Second item, information paper issued since the last meeting is CB1 1139 1314 bracket 01. It's about motor vehicle first registration tax ordinance, a referral from the subcommittee on this proposed resolution, and also we have got a letter from Dr. Kenneth CHAN. He would like to discuss the public consultation on future fuel mix for electricity generation. But we all know that, strictly speaking, power generation is not within the purview of this panel, but power generation per se is within the permit of the Economic Affairs panel. They have resolved to discuss this on the 28th of April. I believe that they also welcome attendance by members of other panels. So if you're interested in discussing the fuel mix for power generation, please mark down the date of the next EA panel meeting, 28th of April. Items for discussion at the next meeting. At this point, we should perhaps invite the officials to join us. There are two proposed items from the administration. And first, development of the WEE treatment and recycling facility. Of course, this is really related to waste disposal, and also how can we collect WEE from the community and recycle them. And this has given rise to concerns and objections from some districts. So I think it's constructive to have a discussion on WEEE. Second proposed item, provision of sewerage in Tuen Mun and North District. So altogether, two proposed items for the next meeting. I would like to propose a third item on the list of outstanding items. In September 2013, the State Council issued 10 regulations on air quality. And among the issues, there will be the objective of a reduction of PM 2.5 by 15%, and also to reduce the size of vehicular fleet, and also in terms of electricity tariff, there will be peak, regressive, progressive tariffs, and so on and so forth. And they also said that no more LPG power generation will be built, and these facilities are to be replaced by greener facilities. So this is what the State Council has announced. Maybe we should discuss the implications of this new directive from the State Council for Hong Kong, whether in terms of business opportunities or air pollution control measures. And are we subject to these directives of the State Council, and what kind of measure will be taken up by Hong Kong and authorities in the Pearl River Delta to comply? So I will invite the administration to give us a paper on that subject. Anything else on the to be proposed by members here on the list of outstanding items? This coming Friday, we are going to have a special meeting. I've thanked all members for attending the Saturday from 9:30 to 6:30. 146 deputations came here to talk about the land deals and the proposed incinerators. still 45 deputations have not been able to attend the Saturday morning. So from 10 to 12:45 this Friday on the 28th of March, we are going to allow them to come and air their views. On Saturday, 18% of the deputations didn't really show up. So instead of having another special meeting on the 1st of April to deal with the landfills and the proposed incinerators and the motion moved by Mr. Gary Fang, I've discussed with the Secretariat, and I think it would be better that we listen to the deputations on the 28th of March, and when they are done and they are excused, we can spend an hour or so to discuss the subject. And maybe I can also give members notice that we are going to deal with Mr. Gary Fang's motion on that day as well. Deputy Chairman, comments? I have no comment, but are you going to vote on Mr. Gary Fang's motion on the 28th of March? Because a special meeting has been scheduled on the 1st of April. Well, I believe some members would ask for the motion to be voted on. I'll ask the Secretariat to redistribute the wording of the motion. I believe you may have mislaid the original wording, and then we would decide whether to deal with the motion on that day, if that's proposed on that day. And then if it's resolved that it should be voted on, then we will have discussion, a debate, and then a vote will be taken. But if the vote is against the motion being voted on that day, well, that will be the way we deal with it. So these are the possibilities. Oh, I don't really mind whether Mr. Gary Fang's motion will be voted on. Basically, your answer seemed to suggest that it will be voted on. But I would like to know when are we going to discuss the issues related to the landfills and the incinerators ourselves. Well, I think that will happen on the 28th of March. We have cancelled the special meeting on the 1st of April. We've drawn the line for deputations. 190 have actually indicated interest. Actually, there was a very thorough discussion last year, and we have visited Europe on to study their incinerators. I've asked the administration to give an account on the things that have happened since the last time when the proposed incinerator was rejected. I want the administration to set out the issues and the progress in chronological order for members' reference. I've just learned that the special meeting on the schedule for the 1st of April will be has been cancelled actually. So on the 28th of March, this panel would deal with everything related to the 3 landfills and the proposed incinerator. Is that the case? I think so. Can you give us a ballpark estimate as to when the meeting would end? I just want to make sure that I can attend the entire meeting. On that day, 45 deputations will come. They will be given 3 minutes each. So altogether, they will spend some 2 hours, but some of them may not turn up, according to experience. So the time required will be from 1 hour, 40 minutes to 2 hours. We start at 10. And then we would have a discussion among ourselves. Of course, the chairman has the discretionary power to extend the meeting by 15 minutes. I understand the motion is controversial, I will tell you before 12:45 whether the motion will be dealt with in this way. I don't want to have a situation whereby there are technical problems. So I will certainly allow members to have a chance to indicate their support or objection. So are you saying that the meeting will last up to 1 p.m.? Yes, I can extend the meeting by 15 minutes, and I can extend the meeting by more than 15 minutes if all members agree. So if any one of you objects, then the longest meeting will be one that lasts up to and until 1 p.m. So please be assured that everyone, either in support or in objection, will have a chance to be there to deal with the motion. Mr. Gary Fan, you are the mover of the motion. I don't want to be accused of anything or of unfair practices on that day. If you have problems about this proposed arrangement, please let me know now. All right, item number 4 now. Matters of Hong Kong's municipal solid waste recovery rate and handling of imported waste. 2 papers are relevant, CB1-1104-13-14-03, and also a background brief from our Secretariat is CB1-1104-13-14-04. And also relevant is a letter from Mr. Wu Chi Wai dated 10th of March 2014. It's CB1-1104-13-14-05. Over to the Under Secretary for an introduction, please. But first of all, let me introduce the officials in attendance. We have Ms. Christine Low, Under Secretary for the Environment, Mr. David Wong, Assistant Director, EPD, Dr. Hon Chan, Assistant Director, EPD, and Mr. Ng Meng, Deputy Head, Trade, Decoration and Systems Bureau, Customs and Excise Department. Well, we have 3 items for discussion, so I would like to give more time for members to raise questions. Here on the first subject, according to the paper, there are 3 subject matters. First, how do we calculate the waste recovery rate? We have appointed an independent consultant to look at the figures and the calculation formula. Here's some background information. After this current administration took office, we had a discussion with Dr. Hon Chan and other colleagues, and we discovered that there were some problems with the recovery rate for plastics. And therefore, in 2012, we appointed an independent consultant to take a hard look. And now we understand, we have come to understand where the problems lie. I can go into details, but perhaps what you want more is to raise questions, because if you have read press reports or our paper, you know where the problems are. You may also refer to Annex 1, which set out the problems with waste plastics. It was conjectured that some imported plastics were dumped in our landfills. But actually, the amount of waste disposed of in our landfills has not experienced any significant increase. So that's what we can tell from the consultancy study. You may be concerned how we can calculate the recovery rate more accurately in the future, and what kind of formula should be adopted. So in the second part of the paper, we talk about the implication of Operation Green Fence in the mainland for Hong Kong, and how many containers are stranded in Hong Kong, because that was the concern, that plastics were returned from the mainland and whether they ended up in our landfills. So you can see for yourself the figures, and also the returned plastic materials have all left Hong Kong, and most of them actually subsequently went to the mainland. Part 3 of the paper is about how in the future we can support the recycling industry. This part is a briefer because we have a steering committee chaired by the CS4A.
So later on we will be coming back to discuss this with members. So when members ask questions today, I hope that you will be more focused on parts 1 and 2. We can give you more detailed explanation with regard to those 2 areas. So, Madam Chair, do you want to give the floor to members now? What do members want? Dr. Chan? Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, with regard to municipal solid waste recovery rates and its calculation, last time we said that we mainly used 2 data. First of all, the amount of MSW recovered, and second, the amount of MSW disposed. And for disposal, it's actually very accurate because we have records at our landfills. So for MSW recovered, how do we get those figures? It's divided into 2 parts. First of all, the Census and Statistics Department would look at the domestic export statistics. And secondly, for the recyclables, when they are recovered in Hong Kong, for example, some recyclers, maybe they have done something to recover the materials, but this is not a big amount. So when it's compared with domestic exports, the amount is much smaller. Now, the Undersecretary said just now, in recent years, the figures of waste plastics has been quite fluctuating, and you can see this in Annex 2. There has been an increase. So we've decided to conduct an independent consultancy study, and I would like to tell you the findings of this study. Now, for the recyclers and the recycling industry, in particular those involved with the recycling of waste plastics, now they actually have different definitions when it comes to the waste plastics. Well, for domestic exports, there's actually a very clear definition in the Import and Export Ordinance. Now, first of all, it has to be something that's manufactured in Hong Kong, including recyclables, or there are some procedures in Hong Kong, and the shape of nature of these materials have been changed in Hong Kong, and you can call them domestic exports. So, waste plastics would be included because you would have to shred the plastic or to turn them into other forms before they are exported. And there are also plastics coming from other countries. Now, maybe you will have to sort them or package them or put them into the same container, then they would not be regarded as domestic goods, and this would not be regarded as domestic exports. However, some traders may regard this as domestic exports, and they make customs declaration accordingly. So that's why there's been such a confusion. And also in 2000 or between 2005 and 2010, in Annex 2, actually you can see this very clearly. At that time, it was very prosperous, and there were a lot of import and exports. So for the increase in the export of waste plastics has huge impacts on the recycling trend. However, after 2010, there was a decline. So the consultants told us that after its decline in 2011, actually the figure was more accurate. It could really reflect the situation in Hong Kong. But there is also one thing very important, that is, other than the fluctuation in terms of waste plastics, for waste papers and waste metals, there were not such fluctuations. Because for waste paper and waste metal, each year we're talking about 170 17 million tons of them when it comes to domestic export. The consultants also try to find out whether we should continue to use the present formula. Well, the answer is that yes, we can do that. However, when it comes to collecting data, we have to do something so as to optimize the situation so that the figures are more accurate. So under paragraph 8 of the paper, the consultant suggests that there are several things that we can do so that the data can be more accurate. First of all, now for the recyclers and exporters, when it comes to customs declaration, they may have different definitions for domestic exports. So the government should prepare additional guidelines and arrange regular thematic workshops for the recyclers and exporters, so that trade declarants can clearly understand and comply with the declaration. So now we have set up a working group, including EBT and Customs and Excise Department, etc. So we will be holding a workshop next month. And also for our Customs and Excise Department, they actually have regular meetings with the relevant trades. So we would like to take this opportunity to include this theme in the regular workshops. So we would tell them what is the definition of recyclable or waste plastics and what they should do when it comes to a customs declaration. And also, we will reinforce the audit of relevant statistics figures. And there will be surveys conducted. Well, when it comes to auditing, what does it mean? Now, first of all, we will conduct random checks, and this will be more frequent. And for those who are importing and exporting waste plastics, if the figures they report to us do not look normal, we will conduct investigations, and we will also carry out follow-up investigations so that we can get more accurate data. So this is basically what we will do to optimize the situation so that the data we obtain in the future will be more accurate. Thank you, Dr. Chan. For this item, it should end at 3:30. However, we spent some time on discussing the meeting on the 28th of March, so maybe I can lengthen the discussion of this item. Maybe we can end at around 3:40. So for members who would like to ask questions, please raise your hands now. If there are too many people, I'll draw a line. Lo Wai Kwok, Hannah Wong, Lee Cheuk Yin, Gary Fan, Wu Shi Wei, Elizabeth Court, 6. So each member will be given 5 minutes. Mr. Lo Wai Kwok. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, with regard to the figures in Annex 3, well, I think we should analyze them. If we look at Annex 3, it's looking at the quantity of imported and exported recyclables in the past 5 years. And I think we should really look at such figures. They include different types of recyclables: ferrous metal, non-ferrous metal, paper, plastics, and others. As for plastics, in the past 5 years, well, plastics accounted for 80% of the total recyclable amounts. As for when you compare importation and exportation, you can see that we import more iron and paper than exporting, or we export more than import. So for the figures in 2013 and 2012, when you look at the export and import figures, they are quite similar. But if you look at 2009 and 2010, these figures are very different. There is a difference of 500,000 tons when it comes to plastics. So for this 500,000 tons, does it mean that the plastics will be processed in Hong Kong? I don't think people will be importing plastics and then put the plastics in the landfill. Nobody will be that stupid. So what was the industry like at that time? And also I would ask another question. Now, in the past, some of the plastics were reprocessed in Hong Kong so that they could become raw materials. So how is that industry doing now? Well, there are plastics recovered in Hong Kong as well. And we hear that they actually encounter a lot of problems because transport fee is high and these are not very valuable materials. And it's also a labor-intensive trade. So I think that these figures are very contradictory. So if people are importing plastics for reprocessing, that means they are valuable materials. So actually, people should recover plastics in Hong Kong. So how come so much plastics is still dumped at landfills? In the past, there were a lot of queries about recovery rate, and you insisted that you were not wrong, but now you find out there are really problems. Dr. Chan will be giving you a detailed answer later, maybe. She cannot answer all your questions today, and in the future we will give the answers to you. Why is that? Because now we have a recycling fund, and we are looking at different types of recyclables. Now we are looking at waste plastic, edible oil, and waste paper. And we are looking at the questions you raised just now. That is what are the waste plastics doing in our ecosystem. If not all the answers can be answered today, we will give you replies later. With regards to importing plastics to Hong Kong, do people actually do that? Do people actually import plastics into Hong Kong for processing and then they will be re-exported to the mainland? Now, before Operation Green Fence, there was not such a need. Well, the plastics were not of very high quality. Maybe some of them were even contaminated a little bit. But because they have a huge need, so they will take them anyway. So for plastics from other countries, there is no need to process them in Hong Kong, and it's still possible to find mainland buyers. But we do not know the exact figures. We do not know whether how much it accounts for in that 500,000 tons. Maybe my colleague David can also supplement later. But after Operation Green Fence, Hong Kong recyclers are starting to do something else. Now maybe they should try to shred and wash the plastics first before they are re-exported to the mainland. I'll follow up on this later.
Dr. Helena Wong. Some time ago, we talked about the problem with imported waste. And some recyclers did attend our hearing. They said imported waste plastics can be graded A, B, and C. Grade A, Grade B are better, and they can be resold. Grade C is waste plastic mixed with other waste, and after sorting, some of them may end up in our landfills. So since our last meeting, has the Bureau or the C&E department adopted any measure to prevent the importation of Grade C imported waste plastics. And the statistics here are in terms of metric tons. There is no grading. And you do not really tell us the grades of those exported. And also, according to paragraph 17, some waste plastics are dumped in our landfills, although you want to do it as far as possible. You said in one case, a recycler under the arrangement of EPD delivered about 3 tons of plastic recyclables to the eco park for disposal. I suppose it's for recycling. And there are 2 other cases whereby 35 tons of locally generated waste plastics were sent to landfills. Were these recyclers subvented or subsidized by Hong Kong government? Why is it that there are 35 tons of waste plastics that were sent to the landfills? Was there any problem with the recyclers, or were there other problems so that the materials could not be recycled? The first question is about whether we have got imported waste from abroad, and whether there are the different grades of waste plastics would lead to some plastics materials not being exported. Actually, from August to October, we and the CNE department stepped up the sampling process. 304 re-export samples were taken during that period. That was from August to November last year. And that is 6 months after the launch of the Operation Green Fence. And the findings are very clear. For the samples that we took, they were all of good grades. We were told by the trade that the mainland just tightened up the requirements since the launch of Operation Green Fence. So the recyclers or exporters were very careful, and they would make sure that the exported recyclable materials were of high grades. And as some members have said, before the Operation Green Fence was launched, some of them might have tried to export less quality, recyclable materials of a lower quality. And we know that for the whole year, the amount was lower than that in the previous 2 years. So for those which were exported to the mainland, they were of high grades. So we have no law or administrative measures to prohibit the importation of grade C waste material into Hong Kong, and we can only rely on the Operation Green Fence on the mainland, which would indirectly prevent Hong Kong importers from doing that. The important thing is that the waste plastics are exported after the importation into Hong Kong. In the past, the checks conducted on the mainland were more lax. And now, since there are clear requirements, they are more careful now. These are for re-exports to the mainland. So, of course, what you would expect in the country of destination would be an important consideration. And if the destination's regulations have changed, then, of course, they would be careful. So in other words, we have no standards of our own. We rely on Operation Green Fence on the mainland. So we don't care. And for some time, for some period, because of Operation Green Fence, some such waste plastics were stranded in Hong Kong. So are you telling us that there's no standard as far as regulating the importation of foreign waste is concerned? If sometime in the future the mainland will no longer implement Operation Green Fence and the standards are lowered, then we'll have low standards practice in Hong Kong. And we do not know the real situation with the recycling of wastes in Hong Kong, because in Annex 3 you can see the amounts are similar if you compare exports with imports. 2012, 2013, we imported more than what we exported. That's a bigger problem. So we have a few sources of waste plastics. First, the difference between imports and exports. Second, the disposal of waste locally. And we don't know how much was recycled. So Annex 1 doesn't tell you much. Well, you said that for the 2011 figure, it was closer to the reality. So the previous figures should be ignored, right? Can you give us a new table with adjusted figures? In 2012, 2013, we imported more than we exported, so some remained in Hong Kong, and then we also disposed of plastics locally, so maybe they all went to our landfills and created a bigger problem. Well, if a large number of plastics went to our landfills, the records will tell us. So we know that that's not the case. As for the comparison year on year, well, one of the findings that we've got is to take a hard look at the statistics, and when the exporters made their declarations, some did it correctly, some did not. It's difficult to look at that retrospectively. But if you ask me whether these plastics went to our landfills, then the answer is no. For the future, we need to set up a system so that when they make declarations for exports, they know what is the right requirement. How do you know that those materials have not been sent to our landfills? They might have been mixed with other waste. You may be able to tell if the entire load is made of waste plastics. Maybe you can tell us that Annex 3 and the figures should not be taken seriously because they are wrong. But we imported more than what we exported. Well, it may be a question of time lag. Whatever you imported in a particular year might not be exported in the same year. Dr. Chan is an expert on waste disposal. Perhaps she can tell us what the system is like. Thank you, Mr. Lee, for your questions. Why are we saying that imported waste plastics have not been dumped in our landfills? Because we're talking about much larger quantities than locally produced waste. And we're talking about hundreds of containers in terms of the amount. If they mix the waste plastic with domestic waste and then dump them, it would be a big operation. It's a very complicated and time-consuming process. Because of Operation Green Fence on the mainland, sometimes we have to dispose of our locally produced waste plastics in our landfills, and we allow that. It's because of higher quality requirements. So the exporters can now only sell the recyclable plastics. Mr. Lee, I have to be harsh to you since we belong to the same party. Well, I do the same with every panel chairman. Last time when we talk about re-exported foreign imported waste, we were told that when they re-export waste, when we count the amount, some waste plastics was declared as plastics. So we said that the C&E department should inform the exporter to make the right declaration. Waste plastics should not be called plastics. And also in counting the amount of waste plastics, and some plastic bottles with German words were not counted according to some people, and therefore they missed that part of the disposal. Some said that when they re-exported the waste, some 30% will be left behind. And sometimes we have fires in open yard storage in the NT, and the operator was actually incinerating plastic materials. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, I noticed that in Annex 3 from 2009 to 2011, the difference between imports and exports is about 500,000 tons. And it's only recently that the Bureau has asked the exporter to make more accurate declarations. So how come you want to do this? You want to adopt this better practice recently? And then annually we imported waste plastics and exported some of them for other destinations. You know, the waste plastics can be valuable. Have you considered why other countries can sort waste plastics into grade A, grade B, although the quality also varies? Why is it that other countries can do this? So what kind of experience can be learned and adopted by Hong Kong? I have submitted a letter to make a request for a comprehensive tracing mechanism. You may say that at this stage, well, you don't want to do this because it may affect the business environment. But Under Secretary, very soon we have different charging schemes. For example, charging for WEEE and solid waste. And if plastic bottles are covered by the charging scheme, you must have a good tracing mechanism to tell you where these materials end up. Instead of earning a fee from you, and they will make the use of whatever that they can use, and the rest will go to our landfills. What do you think about the proposed tracing mechanism, or are you happy with the current monitoring mechanism?
I understand that in Taipei they have a very stringent customs declaration system. That is, when you import and when you export, you have to report on the exact figures. So can this mechanism be adopted in Hong Kong so that in Hong Kong we also have an effective tracing mechanism so as to manage our waste? Yes, maybe later on Mr. Wong can supplement. Well, Hong Kong is actually a very unique place because for the trading of plastic, for the import and export, they are very significant amounts, and many of the imported plastics are re-exported to the mainland, and actually the mainland is the biggest buyer in the world in this regard. So how can Hong Kong put together a system like that? Well, I'm talking about the experience now because you have to acquire from a certain source and then re-export to mainland. But I'm saying that Hong Kong is very unique. If we want to learn from other places, and maybe the experience is not that relevant. And also about PLS. Whether we want to apply it on plastics. For glass bottles, in the near future, we will be reporting to the LegCo about the charging for glass bottles. So when we talk about the system in the future, we can share some views with you. Maybe Mr. Wong can answer the other questions. Thank you. From August to November, we conducted a survey, and for those 300 odd containers, we actually did that. Well, we looked at the materials contained therein, and we also did a follow-up. That is, we monitor the shipping out of the materials. Over 90%, that is 96% of the containers were shipped out. So when you talk about a tracing mechanism, if we have to know whether where these containers come from and how long they stay in Hong Kong and whether they are shipped out, etc., then we will have to conduct random checks. We cannot just trust the information they provide to us. So we will have to face a law enforcement problem. Can we do that on every single container? Now, when we look at the situation now, if we look at a whole year, we have actually checked over 700 containers, and none of it contained any contaminated plastic. For waste plastics, in the industry, they divide them into grades A, B, and C, but actually the classification is not that clear. They are all regarded as waste plastics, and each quarter is about 200,000 tons. And they may have to pay 40 or to 60,000 for that, and another 10,000 for shipment. So for the exporters and importers, this is money. They attach a lot of importance to these containers. They want the containers to reach the buyers as early as possible. So after the check, we found that 96% of them were like that. But for the remaining few percents, during this period, 4 recyclers in Hong Kong imported waste plastics into Hong Kong for shredding and washing, but this only accounts for a small amount. Only 4 recyclers did that. Mr. Wong, sorry, you're overrunning a lot. Well, normally I would allow members to answer, but please be succinct because you have been overrunning for 2 minutes. Now I'll have to draw a line here because we'll still have another 2 items to discuss, so there will not be another round of questions. Mr. Gary Fan. Well, with regard to the government's answer, in particular Annex 1, I don't think it's that convincing. Well, in the past 5 years, well, in 4 years' time, we had more imported plastics than exported plastics. So where did they go other than the landfills? Now, if we do not want Hong Kong to become a transshipment center for overseas exports, why can't we stop this trade? Now, if there is such a problem, and it is possible that these overseas waste plastics would end up in our landfills, then why do you think you should continue to do this? And if you cannot answer this question, you should provide us with the reference figures later. How is this contributing to the economy of Hong Kong? How much is it accounting for our GDP? How many jobs have been created? Oh, you have to give us such figures. Then the LegCo can decide whether it is worthwhile for us to continue to have this trade, because otherwise we will become a transshipment center for overseas waste. Well, these are different concepts. If it is re-exporting, if somebody is going to buy some goods, and if these goods are not to be stranded in Hong Kong, then would there be a problem? Well, Hong Kong is a free port, so this should not be a problem. But we are very concerned about another thing, that is, will somebody buy waste plastics and they have to process this waste plastics in Hong Kong? And how much of it would become really waste in Hong Kong? Now, if it accepts the continuation of this kind of trading, then the operators may open the containers in Hong Kong, and they would process the waste material so as to enhance their value, and then they will re-export the processed products. So of course, when they open the containers and do something to the contents, and there will be some waste, and the waste will end up in the landfills. But this is still a normal way of trading. Now we are talking about waste plastics, but you can imagine that there may be other goods like this. That is, in Hong Kong, they open up the container, they process the materials contained, and then they re-export the end products. There will still be some waste generated. Maybe that's wood, maybe that's paper, and those will also end up in our landfills. So if we look at it from this perspective, then we will have to stop all importing and exporting then. Now, yes, of course, we do not want overseas waste to end up in our landfills. We do not agree to that. So can we make ourselves clear what kind of trading are we talking about? So can you give us figures, Under Secretary, if you want to convince us how much is it contributing to our economy? If it is not contributing a lot, is it worthwhile that we do this? So what exactly are you talking about? Now, for recyclables, if they are processed in Hong Kong, how much is it contributing to our economy? You're talking about a turnover? So there are so many re-exporters, and for a year, well, what is the overall turnover? So what are we going to ban? I'm not asking you to do that. You're talking about importing recyclables, and these recyclables are processed in Hong Kong. You were describing this commercial behavior, and how much contribution is this commercial behavior contributing to the economy of Hong Kong? I cannot answer this question right now, but we have to look at the crux of the issue. What are we looking at now? You cannot say that because this is not about a huge amount of money, then we should not do it. Well, I do not want to waste other members' time. Maybe the Undersecretary can provide us with the relevant figures after the meeting. Maybe you can ask the trade associations. Don't ask just one operator. I think they can give us the relevant information. Ms. Scott. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, with regard to the figures, can the government clarify further? So now it's 52 to 39. So in the past, does it mean that the figures were not that reliable? Now the major difference may be due to wrong customs declaration. So that's why there's such a big difference. And you're saying that the other figures are correct, and the problem just comes from the wrong declaration. So if it's fallen from 52 to 39%, well, most of them are about waste plastics. I cannot tell you how many percent is caused by wrong customs declaration. Now, for metals and papers, they also accounted for a huge amount of our recycling industry, but they do not have such a problem. The problem only lies with plastics. So for 39%, it means that not much of that is recovered in Hong Kong. And this is almost the lowest level. Now, if there is such a problem, does it mean that you can do your customs declaration in whatever way you like? So how can these be prevented in the future? So can the Customs and Excise Department colleagues answer this question? Mr. Ng. For customs declaration, we are following international standards. And that may not be totally in line with the EPD practice. Now, they would just report that there's plastics, so it would not come with such details. Now we know there is a problem, so we will remind the traders what they should do in the future when it comes to the customs declaration. They have to make correct declaration, and they have to clarify the definition. They have to know what is meant by domestic export. So if I just ignore you and fill in whatever thing I like in a form, would there be any penalty? How can we be sure that the future figures are correct? Now, if they just fill in whatever way they like, then we will follow up, and the result may be prosecution. You will prosecute them? Maybe I can ask a question. Now, according to the law, they have to declare what substance that is. So for substance is plastic. So if it's contaminated plastic, is there a difference when they make the declaration? No, we do not require such details. They may have a misunderstanding about the definition. So they just have to tell you that whether it's domestic export or re-export. Yes, they may have a misunderstanding. If they do not understand the definition clearly, then they may fill in the wrong answer. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. Now, if they just write plastics, if it's really plastic, then that's okay. But if it's actually waste plastics or even contaminated plastics, and if they're still allowed to write just plastics, then there will be a problem. So if it's waste plastics and they just write plastics, even if you find that out, they haven't broken any law. Yes, that's the way it is now. So this is a loophole. So in the future, what do you plan to do? How are you going to prevent this from happening again? Now, there are three departments: the Customs Excise Department, the Census and Statistics Department, and the EPD. We all have the list of recyclers. So we will remind them what the definition is, and they have to be very careful. And when they fill in the forms, they have to be careful. So would there be a category that is waste plastics? No, then there will be a problem. Then you have to improve the declaration system.
Mr. Ng, please supplement if I don't understand it correctly. First of all, we have international categories for declarations, trade declarations, and we have to follow the international practice. And that's another safeguard, and that is the import mechanism of the mainland. They don't want to import substandard materials. So under the Green Fence Operation Green Fence, they return the plastics not up to their required standards. Hong Kong is a trading center. If our exporter makes a false declaration, we may know or may not know. And then when the goods reach the other side, they have their enforcement mechanism. And when the goods are returned to Hong Kong, we can handle it on our side. Yeah, and in 2013, some 256 containers fell under this category, because the mainland would tell us what are those, how many containers are returned to Hong Kong. You have thousands of people making declarations on a daily basis. Of course, some of them are not correct declarations. But I don't think we should do anything that is not in line with international practice. What is more important is to do the random checks or sampling tests, and how do we deal with cases of incorrect declarations. Mr. Yik Chi Ming, there are three problems. I've heard the Undersecretary's explanation. Some members asked about the difference between the amounts of imports and exports. You said some materials are imported for processing, and in the process some of the materials become waste, and then there was the export. So the two might have a difference, and of course there is also the time difference. Would there be any other reasons for the difference as well? What about for re-export? Say it's imported from Spain, and then it's put on board a vessel bound for the mainland. And if the container is not accepted and is rejected, so the container would go back to Spain. We cannot say that we would not import certain materials. Certain materials are not to be imported for re-export. That will affect our business environment and our status as a trading port. And they may come to Hong Kong first, and then re-export to the mainland through sea or land transport. If we rely on Operation Green Fence to check the standards, then of course they have more manpower. But what about us? Shouldn't we have some standards? Say if I buy some grey sea materials at the price of grey sea, and then the mainland says, well, we only allow grey A materials to be imported. So how can you return the grey sea materials to the foreign exporter? So the materials will be stuck in Hong Kong. So we shouldn't just rely on Operation Green Fence on the mainland. We should have our own operation. Perhaps it can be called Operation Green Shield. And then paragraph 7 of the paper says that the actual quantity, those dumped in our landfills are of low quality. I don't see any publicity on the part of the government on the need to flush and clean the plastic bottle before disposal. Well, the person who disposed of plastic without cleaning might think that it can be recycled, but it cannot.
我相信我哋喺公眾教育嗰度啦，點樣可以叫到香港人啦？第一就係即係。
First of all, we have to find ways to tell people to do the sorting, and then do one more step, and that is cleaning the plastic materials before disposal. That may be something we need to do. Well, under the current mechanism, if insufficient documentation is provided for re-export to the mainland, we'll ask the materials to be sent back to the place of origin. And if the customs authorities on the mainland reject the importation of certain materials, they will inform us. And then we'll ask the importer to return the materials to the place of origin. I'm not talking about re-export, because I'm talking about import and then export. According to the C&E department, they would just declare the material as plastics. So you may have missed that. You may have missed the fact that it's waste plastics. So unless you do some just sample checking, Hong Kong will end up being the victim. That's precisely what we are doing. The C&E department and I would do some random sample checks, and some 96% will be re-exported to the mainland. We would do the paper tracing exercise to make sure that the materials are re-exported to the mainland through different exit points. I have 2 points to raise to follow up the matter. If in the exports we do not make a difference between plastic materials and waste plastics, it's difficult to monitor the whereabouts. So perhaps the C&E department should have a different category for waste plastics. If we don't have this category, then we cannot check our exports and we cannot check our imports, because what is declared as plastic materials might indeed be waste plastics. I think the panel would like you to create a different category, and that is waste plastics. What are the difficulties that you are going to encounter? If so, please explain. And also please answer the questions raised by Dr. Lo Wai Kwok concerning the number of containers. The difference annually between imports and exports is about 500,000 tons. So we imported that much, and then when the plastics were re-exported, there was a difference of 500,000 tons. Maybe it has to do with the errors in making declarations. But have you ascertained this with the trade? Well, the re-export is an important business for Hong Kong. We should not say that because of concern of waste plastics we stop doing re-export business. But we just want to make sure that waste plastics are properly recovered and recycled. Is the difference of 500,000 tons annually due to declaration errors? We are concerned about how we can do a better job in recycling waste plastics. How can we help the recycling industry in this regard? And that is to say, how can we recycle more locally produced waste plastics through public education? And then the waste plastics should be properly treated, handled, so that they have a higher value, and then the treated and recyclables can be re-exported. So at what stage can some subsidy be provided? That's precisely the question we are trying to answer now. Madam Chair, you asked a question about the categories of import and export declarations. Maybe, I don't know whether Mr. Fong, Mr. Ng, can give us an answer. Well, actually, we need to act on the consultant's recommendations by introducing a new form, and we need to talk to the Census and Statistics Department, and cooperation is required with the industry. If we do not have a separate category of waste plastics, tracing is very difficult. And if we do that, would it be in conflict with international agreements? And is it the reason why you are reluctant to do it? If it's not in line with international customs practice, can we have some category with bracket waste plastics? If it's from Europe, of course, the place of origin is Europe, and it should not be Hong Kong. But for local plastics, beverage bottles, and those beverage bottles were imported. So what is the place of origin in such a case? All right, members are concerned about the statistics, but we have to move on now, and we have to have a discussion about the next item. It's a CB 1104 1314 07, and this is an item on progress of the Pilot Green Transport Fund, and we have a change of the administration's team.
咁就副局長繼續留喺度同我哋傾呢個。
The secretary is still with us, and for the new attendees, we have from the EPD, Mr. Andrew Lai, Deputy Director, Mr. Mok Wai Chin, Assistant Director, and Mr. Fong Kim Wah, PEPO. I will ask my colleague, Mr. Lai, to give a brief introduction. Well, the Green Transport Fund has been set up for 3 years, so we are here to brief members on the latest state of affairs. Electric vehicles is one of the major directions for green transport, so the government has to step up support and subsidy before electric vehicles can be adopted more generally. So there's a fund to pay for the difference in first registration duty and also for the provision of charging facilities, so that we can facilitate the adoption of such vehicles and to reduce the resistance of users and the industry. When we approve funding support, we ask the beneficiary to submit 6 monthly reports, and when the project is completed, a final report is required. All such reports have been uploaded to EPD's website for public reference, and through such reports, you know the merits or the advantages of electrical vehicles. We'll continue to do more publicity to encourage the transport sector and also transport service provider, which are NGOs, to apply for funding support from this Public Green Pilot Green Transport Fund. 4 members would like to raise questions: Mr. Lee Chok-yan, Dr. Kenneth CHAN, Mr. Chan Kim-po, Dr. Loh Kwok Wai, and Mr. Gary Fan. Who else? Mr. Wu Chi-wai. So 6 members. We overran a bit in the last item, so here everyone is given 3 minutes.
Mr. Lee Chok-yan, thank you. What do you think the performance is now? Now 73 subsidies have been given out, and one of it has ended its 2-year project. So how about the publicity effect? So this is question number 1. And question number 2, for electric vehicles, they have to be plugged to get electricity. And if you do not have this kind of facilities in car parks, then there will be a problem. And I've heard that there's also a format problem. And the charger may be different. So would you help to unify the formats? And at the car parks, maybe you should even encourage them to provide free facilities. And when they go to such car parks, they really should be able to get their vehicles charged. Because I think that electric vehicles have not been that popular is mainly because there are not enough ancillary facilities. And I think you really should do something more about the ancillary facilities. If you do that, maybe in the future, electric vehicles can be more popular and people are more willing to buy them. Now, it's almost halfway through the funding period, and so it hasn't proven to be that popular. Now, for electric vehicles, what are their problems? Well, there is an inherent problem. That is about the amount of supply and reliability. Buyers may not find it too reliable, as this is one major problem. And also Mr. Lee Chak-yan mentioned several issues, and indeed they are issues right now. Mr. Andrew Lai, Mr. Lee Chak-yan's observation is correct. That is one of the major obstacles. Charging facility is a problem. Now, internationally, electric vehicles have different charging modes. For example, the mainland, Japan, Europe, they all have different modes. So if you want to unify all this, well, because Hong Kong is not a manufacturer of such vehicles, so we really have to do more about this charging mode. In this year's policy address, it's mentioned that in order to promote the use of electric taxis, we hope that in government car parks we can provide about 50 charging places, so that for suppliers who are interested in electric taxis, this can become an incentive. And yes, in the world, they still have not aligned the charging modes yet. However, in Hong Kong, we have 1,000 standard charges, and we want to revise 100 of them into medium speed chargers, and the charging time can be reduced by about 2/3. So it would help promote the use of electric vehicles. And as the Undersecretary said just now, when it comes to supply, in particular commercial vehicles, the supply is really limited. The Transport Department would have to give approval. Let me cite an example. For medium or heavy goods vehicle, there is actually only one brand, and for electric taxi, there is only one brand as well. So there is limited choice. When users want to buy electric vehicles, this is really not encouraging. And also, I would like to call on members. This Wednesday, at the council meeting, you will be discussing the extension of the first registration fee for electric vehicles for 3 years. Now, it is very difficult to promote the use of electric vehicles in Hong Kong, so I hope that members can support this extension of 3 years so that the suppliers would get this clear message. That is, legislators are supportive of promoting electric vehicles in Hong Kong. I hope that they would not get the wrong message that you don't want to do this. Well, actually, the government official is trying to make use of us. Maybe the Labour Department colleague should launch a counterattack. I think for the amendment, it was moved by Dr. Fernando Zhang. I think this is actually quite a good concept. Now, green transport, of course, I would think a bicycle is the best thing. But for this scheme, you are not helping them. Now, if there are some very innovative people and if they want to learn from this European experience, that actually they can launch a free bicycle system in Hong Kong. That is, you can take a bicycle from this spot and then ride to another port in Hong Kong. Well, although you are promoting green transport, it seems that you are excluding bicycles. And I have looked at the annexes, and you have told us what institutions or companies have made applications, etc. And it seems that now CU has 4 vehicles, and the Watson's group has also several vehicles, and so Swire, they have 6 vehicles. But I think originally you should be targeting non-profit organizations. So when you look at the result of this scheme, shouldn't you review this? That is, how come the fundings are concentrated in such institutions? Now you are helping them to save money, but you are not casting your net wide enough. So I think you should really review this. Well, just now you talked about plastics, and Mr. Tam Chi-yun just gave us some premiums, and these are ball pens, and each of them is wrapped in individual plastic bags. I think it is really a waste of plastic. Well, let me talk about vehicles first. Well, for those pens, I can recover them. I'll use them. Go get them. Now, the original objective of this fund is to help commercial vehicles. We didn't aim to help only non-profit organizations, but they were also included. They were also eligible for making applications. Now, when we try to promote something new, we should be more open-minded. I think that is appropriate. Well, maybe I can explain about the objective of the fund and why are some enterprises so enthusiastic. Now, for this fund, we want to make use of this pilot scheme to promote new successful green technologies. Well, these technologies are not old ones. You can imagine in the commercial world, only large-scale companies can take part in this test. For small companies, they may think that this is too great a risk. Even if the government gives me some subsidy, I'd prefer a conventional vehicle because it's more reliable when it comes to doing business. So as Dr. Chan pointed out just now, these are larger scale companies, but it doesn't mean that we have not promoted the technology. We have asked the participants or the fund recipients to disclose the relevant data, and we will also conduct some experience sharing sessions so that such data can be shared. Now, we want to tell people the successful stories, then we can promote the use of such vehicles. I hope that in phase 2 you can do more. Mr. Chen Kimpo? Well, the Pilot Green Transport Fund is a good concept, and you have conducted an interim review. So, are there certain technologies that are worthy of promoting, but not many people are interested in them? So, if there are such cases, how do you encourage people to look at such technologies? You want to encourage more people to use these new technologies. So for the fund recipients, must they share their experience? Do they have to commit to that? And if they do not want to share their experience, is there any penalty? Now, for all the participants, Well, we'll tell them the pilot scheme will last for 2 years, and for the first half year, they would have to hand in an interim report, and then after the first year and then second year, they would have to hand in an annual report. And they would have to meet the EPD requirements. There are some specific data, for example, the frequency of repair, the amount of electricity they use, and the experience of drivers, etc. So all this information have to be given to us. We have also identified an independent organization to help us, the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. It will act as a third party, and it is an independent checker. It will analyze the data for us. So after compiling the report, it will be uploaded onto the EPD so that everybody can have access to it. And as Mr. Mok said just now, all along we have been conducting sessions for different trades to share the experience. And we have asked the representatives from the participating companies to share their actual experience with other trades. They will share their successful stories, and the most important thing is that they can save a lot of money on fuel. So is there any technology that not many people were interested in? Now, when we look at the pilot fund for hybrid goods vehicles or light goods vehicles, it seems that they are more interested in this project. But for medium goods vehicles or heavy goods vehicles, because there is only a limited supply of such types of vehicles in the market, so there were not many applicants. And also for tour coaches, the application rate was also low. Is mainly due to the operators, because they couldn't identify enough space for installing chargers. So that's why the response was not that good. Well, we still have 3 members who would like to ask questions, and I also have 1. So does any other member would like to raise questions? I'll draw a line here, no second round questions. Mr. Lo Wai Kwok, I have to declare interest. I was an ex-member of the Pilot Green Transport Fund, so you do not see my name in Annex 3 because I have already retired. Now, well, the companies take part in this scheme, and they have to shoulder certain responsibilities. So I am clear about these. I have a question about Annex 5. That is about the interim trial reports. No matter whether it's electric goods vehicles or hybrid goods vehicles, it seems that they have the same problem. That is, there is insufficient power to go uphill. As for the other areas, well, of course, they will achieve much more saving if it's an electric vehicle, and if it's a hybrid vehicle, a little bit less. So this are the data that come from the interim trial report. And there's also one thing very important, that is the investment return. Now, for the supply of this kind of vehicles, there is not much choice. And when they are compared to conventional commercial vehicles, they are more expensive. So that's why you need to have this subsidy scheme. So after a certain period of trial, I think we need to know one figure, that is investment return. How is it compared with conventional commercial vehicles? So how can we provide more incentive for the users to make such a change? Now, if you do not provide economic incentive, then it will be very difficult to promote electric or hybrid vehicles. So, do you have information in this area?
Mr. Mock. Well, we calculate the saving in fuel costs. The price of the vehicle depends on the brand that's available, the make that is available in the market. If we can find out the fuel saving in the Hong Kong context, then we know that we are not just plucking figures from overseas literature, and then they would know that for a certain make of vehicle, they can do the sums, how much money can, or how long will it take for the investment to be recouped. So we attach importance to the fuel saving aspect rather than the return period, because for different vehicles, the depreciation rate is different. And if we can come up with the right fuel saving statistics, the users can make their own calculations. Well, I think unless the fuel saving is substantial, otherwise the rate of in terms of the rates of return is inferior to conventional vehicles. If the government has a plan to provide subsidies, you must find out how much should be provided. I think time is already up. I should have allowed Dr. Low to ask a follow-up question. Mr. Gary Fang, I'm on the council of CUHK. There were two mainland manufactured campus buses which were out of order. There were 2 electric buses and 2 electric vans. Are we talking about the same vehicles? Those vehicles which broke down, were they the two? These two? Well, we subsidize CUHK in buying 2 electric buses. We'll try to ascertain the problem with CUHK, and if our members are interested, we'll let you know. $93 million, and for 2 electric buses, it's $2.3 million per bus. After running for 2 days, they broke down. So this green and innovative technology may or may not be ready for application, real application. Have we many such similar failure cases? Will you blacklist such electric buses so that we don't have a recurrence of a waste of $4.6 million within such a short period of time? According to CUHK, it was not a case of vehicle breakdown, but it was because of a traffic safety issue. Someone was crossing the road and the vehicle had to be stopped abruptly. And according to the design, the vehicle had to be reset before it could run again. So it was not due to problematic buses. There were 2 electric buses. The other one was functioning well because it didn't have to stop abruptly.
黎生正話講咧，我哋會有一個即係獨立第三者。
And as Mr. Lai has told you, we would ask a third party, independent third party, to gather the operational data so that a report can be submitted to us to tell us the performance. So, and also in terms of maintenance, fuel costs, and so on and so forth, all the data will be uploaded to our website. All operational problems would be announced, and announced for public information. Mr. Uchiwai, the government has spent so much public money to test out such green transport measures, so that they may have a bearing on future adoption of certain green measures and initiatives. Are you going to give us a final report detailing the findings and the strategies that the government would adopt in making them popular? There are vans, there are taxis running on electricity, and recently we have encountered problems with electric bicycles. The transport department is saying that if it's too slow, they cannot be allowed to go on the road. If they're too fast, they should not use the cycle track. We want to improve or reduce pollution by the adoption of green transport, and some technologies are adopted by foreign countries, and we are not able to do the same because of policy reasons. Would you be willing to do something about it? And also, let's look at how we can promote the use of bicycle on our roads. And what about the room for exploring the adoption of more bicycle for our transport system, given that your views may not be the same as those of the transport department. We have the interim report, and of course there will be the final report at the end of the trial period. We want to promote green transport for commercial vehicles, and there are problems. Sometimes it has to do with our facilities, and also there may be problems with the supply. How many models are available, that is? Such things are rather not within our control. But if you ask whether we're committed in promoting green transport, the answer is definitely yes. But I think we will be able to come up with a more detailed final report. And we also described the macro environment for such vehicles to be adopted. And we will be able to come up with the right policy only at that stage. Maybe we can be given 15 more seconds for our discussion, for the information on our discussion with Transport Department. If we're talking about electric bicycles, the Transport Department's concern is safety, because bicycles are running on electricity, which is just like other vehicles. They are concerned other road users may be affected, and even pedestrians crossing the road might be affected. My understanding is that they are concerned that certain requirements for the vehicles on road cannot be met. Such electrical bicycles will not be approved for use on the road. We have to respect the Transport Department because this is a safety consideration. Actually, I wanted to ask the same question about electric bicycles. Can we allow electric bicycles on our highway or flyovers? Then I agree that it's just a motorized bicycle with a very small power. Maybe they shouldn't be allowed on highways. But what about allowing them for commutation within the new towns and local districts? And you already have bicycles there. And the speed is not as high as that of motor vehicles. Maybe they can use the cycle track with a speed limit imposed. Well, if the focus is to allow the moped or electric bicycles to run on cycle tracks, then it's not related to the road traffic ordinance. Then the question is whether other users of the cycle track will have their safety impacted on. Madam Chair, we are here talking about concepts. We're not talking about the performance level of the moped in question and the actual implications for other people. Well, if you are interested in this topic, maybe we should invite people from the Transport Department to tell us what would happen if we allow them to use the road and not just the cycle tracks. Well, we want to find the middle ground for safety as well as environmental protection. We are told that sometimes cycling athletes can reach a very high speed. But for someone who is not as physically fit, like me, who would like to save, do our commuting with such bicycles or mopeds in new towns, for example. I know we don't have a policy yet, but we would like to see if a middle ground can be found for this to be allowed. So we put this down in our list of outstanding items, and I hope we can have a discussion with the Transport Department on the use of mopeds and the conditions that should be attached. I think Mr. Gary Chan has asked a number of questions in the transport panel. Shouldn't this be taken up by that panel? Well, I would talk to colleagues in the transport panel to see whether this should be a joint panel meeting. Technically, it's within their purview, but if we want to promote or encourage environmentally green transport, and then we should discuss it. But I agree that as a matter of technical issues, it should come under the transport panel. Well, sometimes 2 or 3 bureaus are concerned about a certain issue, and you need to find a lead panel. What I'm trying to say is that Mr. Chan has already raised a number of questions and issues related to road traffic. So the question is whether we should allow that other panel to discuss the matter, and I believe that will be faster. But if you want to promote this, the Environmental Bureau must take the lead, because they don't have the incentive to promote this. They are more concerned about the railway projects and so on and so forth. But I will talk to the transport panel over this. We have to move on to the next item, proposed amendments to the schedules to the Hazardous Chemicals Control Ordinance, CAP 595, paper CB 1104-1314-08. They are here to consult us before the schedules can be amended. They want to cover certain substances for regulation. I can't read out the names either in Chinese or in English, and even if I manage to pronounce them, I don't know what they are. So perhaps over to the administration for an introduction of the paper. Newly joining us is Mr. Wong from the EPD. Mr. Wong Chun-Fai. Madam Chair, as you have said, this is related to the schedules of the Hazardous Chemicals Control Ordinance. According to the 2 international conventions, we want to extend the conventions to 10 new listed hazardous chemicals. Well, it seems that in the past, this panel did not have a chance to discuss the listing of such hazardous chemicals. So that before we amend the subsidiary legislation, we'd like to come here to brief members. Well, we have an ordinance called the Hazardous Chemicals Control Ordinance that would regulate the import and export and re-export and use of certain chemicals.
And mainly we have a licensing system to do that. As for China, it has signed 2 conventions. They include the Stockholm Conventions and Rotterdam Convention. And because China is a party to the 2 conventions, so Hong Kong has also to implement the conventions. And lately, 10 new chemicals have been added to the list of to the elimination and restriction list of these 2 conventions. So Hong Kong has to add these chemicals into Hong Kong's list too. So in the schedule to the Hazardous Chemicals Control Ordinance, these 10 chemicals would have to be added. And as the chairwoman pointed out, these are actually rare chemicals. In the past 2 to 3 years, we have conducted some consultations, and we have asked trade associations, laboratories, as well as people or contractors who might be able to use this kind of chemicals, including fire service contractors, etc. We have told them about this, and we discovered that there are very few people who are using these chemicals, and only a handful of laboratories would use them for equipment calibration. So we are just adding the chemicals to our list. We are not banning them, but they are subject to a licensing system. So I believe there will not be a huge impact on the relevant industries in Hong Kong. We would like to listen to members' views on this, and we hope that by about May, after the DOJ has drafted the relevant bill, we will do a negative vetting at the Legislative Council. Members, any comments? I have some questions. Now, for this international responsibilities, well, actually, Mr. Kenneth CHAN and I are both members of the UN Sanctions Committee. Well, actually, we'll just follow the UN rules, the Chinese versions, etc. Now, when we discharge international duties, we don't always have to copy every single word from their rules. I think we have to attach more importance to their objectives. So for the Stockholm Convention and the Rotterdam Convention, can you provide us with the relevant revised documents? In Hong Kong, we are going to amend our law in order to do this. So we will compare these documents, and then I think that is the most important thing we have to do. So members, do you want to add anything? If not, then I hope that the government can provide us with the relevant documents as soon as possible. So when we look at the subsidiary legislation, there will be less problems. Thank you. We will adjourn the meeting now. Thank you.